Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I don't think we had a announcement today go through automatic messaging. So I'm not really sure if there are people have the message yet. So we'll just wait for a minute or two to see, inshallah, if we have some people joining. I believe the automatic message was not sent, so inshallah, until that time, if someone who's joined us can confirm that I'm audible. Okay, inshallah, we'll go ahead and start. Just making sure that we give enough time for people to join in case if there are more people joining, because we've not had the announcement go on today. Okay, inshallah, so let's go ahead and continue. Where we left off yesterday was the Battle of Uhud. So if you remember from yesterday, the Battle of Badr was over, alhamdulillah, was a decisive victory for the Muslims. The Battle of Uhud was sort of a revenge battle for the Quraysh of Makkah, and they came with about 3,000 people, and then the Prophet ﷺ found out about it. He started out with about 1,000 people from Madinah al-Munawwara, and then what he did was essentially bypass the Qurayshi army, and then he went in front of the battle of the mountain of Uhud, and he had about initially 1,000 men with him, but then 300 basically turned back, and they were led by the leader of the Munafiqun, Abdullah ibn Ubay. And now there were about 700 Muslims. So amongst those 700 Muslims, 50 of them were placed on the mountain to cover the pass between Uhud and the mountains were at the Uhud battle. So now, and we talked about yesterday how Prophet ﷺ announced that if who was going to fulfill the right of this sword, and one of the Sahabi named Abu Dujana was given that sword. So now, as the custom goes, the one-on-one battle begins, right? The first person to come out is a person named Talha bin Abi Talha. And Zubair Zubair bin Awwam comes out to fight with him. So that's Zubair manages to kill him, to execute the person. And the Prophet ﷺ says, Allahu Akbar, he screams out loud. And he says, every Nabi has a disciple, and my disciple is Zubair. And then the general battle begins, right? So you have now about 3,000 people versus 650 people, right? So the battle is going on, and now you have amazing displays of valor from the Muslim army, right? Hamza radiyallahu anhu, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas radiyallahu anhu, Ali radiyallahu anhu, these are basically the forefront of the fighters. They're leading everybody. And Abu Dujana is like a battle machine. Whoever he's seeing, anybody who's coming with a sword is not escaping his sword. And if you remember, I said yesterday that Zubair radiyallahu anhu was a little upset that he wasn't given the sword, the special sword the Prophet was handing out. So he follows Abu Dujana, and he sees that I could see that truly Abu Dujana was making good use of that sword. And there was a point that Abu Dujana was about to attack a person, and then he realizes that it's a woman. And the woman is none other than Hind, who hasn't become Muslim yet, and she's the wife of Abu Sufyan. So as Abu Dujana is about to attack her, he stops right at the last moment, and then he lets her go. Anyways, so this fighting is happening, and as this fighting is going on, the Muslim army is actually managing to push back the Qurayshi army. So they are sort of almost in a winning position, right? Now, during fights of those days, the biggest person or the place that is attacked the most is a person who bears the standard. So it's almost like a flag, right? And anybody who has the flag with him, he's the target. So everybody's trying to attack the person with the flag. And what happens with the Qurayshi army is 10 of their flag bearers, one by one are slaughtered. Anytime the next person holds the flag, he's gone down. So you can see that essentially their flag, their standard is almost lying down on the ground because nobody's able to pick it up. Anybody who's able to pick it up is being killed. So while this is happening, one unfortunate incident happens, right? And that is the martyrdom of Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib radiyallahu anhu. Now he's as we talked about, the uncle of Prophet ﷺ. Now Hamza is one of the most accomplished fighters within the Muslim army, right? Anybody who would come in front of Hamza is basically dead, essentially. He's that good. So they cannot challenge him one-on-one. So there's a person by the name of Wahshi, who later on becomes Muslim as well, alhamdulillah. But Wahshi is a slave, and he is promised by his master that if he's able to kill Hamza, because Hamza kills, remember how he kills a whole family of Utbah in the Battle of Badr? So he's a hot target for a lot of the Qurayshi people, including him, wife of Abu Sufyan. So they tell Wahshi that if you kill Hamza, you will be not only given your freedom, but you will be given a lot of gold. So Wahshi isn't really interested in the battle. He's just come as a hitman for Hamza. And Wahshi had a good talent. That's how it was. He's able to be a good spear. And the spear essentially lands right between his navel and his legs. So Hamza is so strong that in spite of that, he looks at Wahshi and he tries to go on to attack him. But the blow is just fatal. So he falls down and he passes away. And then another Sahabi who passes away is Hanzala radiyallahu anhu. If you remember the guy that I was talking about yesterday, Abu Amir bin Saifi, he's his son, and he also passes away. He almost attacks Abu Sufyan, is about to kill him, but about that time, that's when Hanzala radiyallahu anhu is also killed. Now, while this is happening, the Muslim army still has the upper hand, but then the episode of the archers happened, right? If you remember, the Prophet ﷺ gave specific directions to the 50 archers on the mountain. No matter what happens, even if you're winning, you are not supposed to leave that spot or that position. The archers, unfortunately, they misunderstand that specific instruction, and they feel the Muslim army is now winning. There's really no use for us to be over here. Let's go down and collect the booty. And the leader of the archers saying, no, don't do it, because we know that those aren't our instructions. So unfortunately, 40 of them come out as the Muslim army is now kind of almost advanced. They're almost here, and they're just kind of fighting, while the Quraysh army is kind of retreating, right? 40 of them come over here, and just 10 of them are left over here. As soon as that happens, Khalid bin Walid, who is again not a Muslim at that time, he sees his chance. He goes up to the mountain, kills the 10, goes down, gets the 40, and now 200 people are attacking, and they are horsemen. They're the cavalry, right? So they're attacking the 650 from the back. Now, as soon as the retreating Qurayshi army sees that, they turn. There's a lot of people who are killed immediately, because it happens in a very short period of time, right? Because you can imagine they're being attacked from both sides. So while this is happening, essentially there are three groups of people, right? In this chaos, there's three groups of people. One group of people, they're seeing, and then the rumor is now going around within the army that the Prophet ﷺ passed away in this skirmish, right? So one army is one part of the Muslim army is just dejected, and they're trying to escape to Uhud, right? So that's number one. Number two, they say, no matter what, if the Prophet ﷺ has passed away, there's no use for us to live. We're just going to go and fight the Quraysh till the end. Okay? And then some of them, unfortunately, when that was happening, there happens to be some misunderstanding, and the people from the Muslim army, they turn back, seeing the approaching cavalry from Khalid bin Walid, and they accidentally kill some own Muslims. Hudayfa radiyallahu anhu, father, unfortunately passes away in this way. He's seeing the Muslims almost attack his father. He says, don't, oh slaves of Allah, that is my father. But before he could stop them, they unfortunately kill him. So, but he forgives all of them. And then the third group is the group that is protecting the Prophet ﷺ, right? That's the third group that's protecting the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the Prophet ﷺ is completely, basically, all the people that are around him are no longer around him because everybody's trying to defend themselves, right? So he ends up being surrounded by 7 Ansari Sahaba and 2 Sahaba from the Muhajirin. Now, as this is happening, the Prophet ﷺ is identified. As soon as he's identified by the Quraysh, everybody's trying to attack him because he's the prime target. They want to get Muhammad ﷺ, right? So as the Qurayshi army is attacking them, 7 of the Ansari Sahaba, they go out and one by one, they all fight bravely, amazing display of sacrifice. All of them are killed one by one. And now the Prophet ﷺ has just 2 people with him. And who are the two people? One of them is Talha radiyallahu anhu, and the other one is Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas radiyallahu anhu, right? Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas is with the Prophet. The Prophet is giving him arrows and he's telling Sa'd, shoot. And he's trying to defend the Prophet as much as possible. The Prophet makes a dua for him. He says, "Oh Sa'd, shoot, may both my parents be sacrificed on you." And he's the only person to have received the dua of that kind by the Prophet. And then Talha essentially becomes a human shield for the Prophet, and he takes the arrows and the blows that are coming to the Prophet to a point that his hand is paralyzed. There's a direct blow that's coming to the Prophet, and he puts his hand in front of that to take that blow, and his hand is paralyzed. And the Prophet says, if whoever later on, he says, whoever wants to see a living martyr, that then they should see at Talha. So, and Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu, he calls that the day of Talha. The day of Talha, because Talha shows some amazing spirit of sacrifice in protecting the Prophet. And then, now while this is happening, the Muslims, they come to their senses, and then a lot of them try to rush back to the Prophet. And this is including Abu Bakr and Umar, Ali, they're all coming back to the Prophet to try to protect him, right? And then, while all of this is happening, the Qurayshi army, it gets a chance. One person, he's actually the brother of Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. He takes a sword, he takes a stone, and he throws the Prophet. He gets hit in the face, and another person attacks the Prophet with a sword, and then he gets really, the armor holds stops the sword from hitting him within the skin. However, the chains from the armor get stuck in his mouth. So, and the Prophet eventually falls in a ditch. Also, now the other Sahaba finally reach the Prophet, and then the Prophet says, "Go see your brother. Go see Talha and see how he's and protect him." And then one of the Sahaba, Abu Ubaidullah ibn Jarrah, he comes out and he takes out with his teeth. He pulls out the armor, the chains of the armor that are embedded in the face of the Prophet. And as he's doing that, the Sahabi, he loses his teeth. And then while all of this is going on, the Sahabi, if you remember, his name is Mus'ab bin Umair, right? He was, again, the Ansari Sahabi who the Prophet sent before Hijrah to give dawah to the people of Medina and who accept his call. He sees all of this happening. And now he's the standard bearer of the Muslim army, right? So what he does is he essentially, in order to divert the attention of the Qurayshi army from the Prophet, he stands up with the standard and starts waving it, right? Now, as he's waving it, remember, the flag, the person carrying the flag is the prime target always. The entire army descends upon him. And then he is killed in a very brutal fashion. First, his arm is cut out. Then he holds the standard with his other arm. His other arm is cut out. Then he holds the standard with his arm stumps. And then finally, he's martyred. Now, he had a similarity in appearance to the Prophet ﷺ. And then the Quraysh army, they call out and they say, "Oh, Muhammad is killed. Muhammad is killed." So as soon as they say that, then they sort of almost, their attack kind of dies down a little bit because they think their prime target is taken care of, right? And Mus'ab bin Umair makes that sacrifice. So now, as this is going on, about 30 Sahaba, they gather on the Prophet, right? Amongst them, Ka'b bin Malik, he sees the Prophet alive and he shouts out and says, "Oh, Muslims, good tidings to you, the Prophet is alive." The Prophet asks them to be quiet so that the Quraysh army don't realize where his position is. But anyways, they all manage to take the Prophet and they try to escape, and then they go up close to the mountain of Uhud. Right? At that point, they're all tired. The one-on-one battle, the active battle stops, and then the Prophet is basically, along with his Sahaba, is now resting, right, around the Uhud. Everybody's injured, everybody's hurting. And in spite of that, when they find the Quraysh army, they try to go up the mountain to get the Muslims. However, Sa'd bin radiyallahu anhu again shoots them with arrows, and the Muslim army is successful in deflecting them, and they don't go up to Uhud, right? One of the other interesting thing that happens over here, there's a person called Ubay bin Khalaf, and he comes all the way up to the mountain, challenging the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ tells them everybody to move, and he essentially hits him with his weapon. And even though Ubay bin Khalaf isn't injured very severely, he basically gets a scratch. But he's the person that in Makkah, he threatens the Prophet ﷺ and says, "I'm going to kill you, Muhammad." And the Prophet ﷺ says, "No, I will kill you." So when he gets that scratch, he runs back to the army, says, "Muhammad has killed me. Muhammad has killed me. He told me that he's going to kill me. Now he's killed me." And the army, they look at him and they start laughing at him. "Look, you just have a scratch." And he says, "If you know the pain that I'm experiencing right now, you cannot bear it. You cannot tolerate it." Eventually, he dies from that wound. So, anyways, the Muslims are now at Uhud, and everybody is basically resting over here. And then now the Qurayshi army, Abu Sufyan comes out, and he basically starts taunting the Muslims, and he says, "This is the answer for Badr. This is the answer that we have for Badr." And he says, "Okay, is Muhammad amongst you? Is Abu Bakr amongst you? Is Umar amongst you?" And finally, Umar he replies, and he says, "All the three people that you called out are alive and well." And then Abu Sufyan says, "Okay, this is our answer to you for Badr." And Umar says, "No, this is not an equal answer, because our dead are in paradise and your dead are in hellfire." And finally, the Quraysh army, they retreat. But as they're retreating, they mutilate the body of the Muslims that have fallen, including Hamza radiyallahu anhu. His body is also severely mutilated. But eventually, the Qurayshi army retreats, right? And then the Muslims, they come back, they bury the shuhada of the Uhud, and then they return back to Medina. And then the return back to Medina is actually very sad, because 70 of the Muslims are killed in Badr, right? Or in Uhud. And somebody has lost. There are some people that have lost the entire menfolk of their family. One lady, she comes back and she finds out that her father, her brother, and her husband, everybody is killed. Everybody is killed. And she says, "Is the Prophet ﷺ alive?" And she says, the reply is, "Yes, he's alive." And she says, "As long as the Prophet ﷺ is alive, any other calamity we can bear." So, subhanAllah, you can see the amazing love that the Sahaba had for the Prophet ﷺ. Now, after Uhud is done, the Qurayshi army, although they're retreating, then they start having a change in heart. They said, "Why didn't we go? Medina was open. We should have just attacked Medina and finished them off, right?" And then they start, "Okay, why don't we go back and finish the job?" And at that time, even though the Prophet ﷺ has returned to Medina, now he goes back, and this you can say little escapade is known as Hamra al-Asad, right? So as the Prophet ﷺ goes back, and he says, nobody from the army, nobody should come back in this mission except for the people who participated in Uhud. Because if you remember, Abdullah ibn Ubay had taken 300 people and he left. He says, "I don't need their support. I'm just going to go with this army." And this army is now hurting. They're already injured. They already fought a very furious battle. And now they still go in spite of that. And then eventually there's a person by the name of Mabat, and he discourages the Qurayshi army, saying the Muslims are coming with reinforcement. So they finally deter that plan. They cancel that plan and they leave. So this is the Battle of Uhud. Now Uhud, you can say, was a blow to the Muslims. However, it wasn't a complete decisive victory for the Qurayshi army, right? The Makkans, the Mushrikeen, they still know that the Muslims are going to come back, and they still know the Muslims are not completely finished. So the next major battle that happens between is the Battle of Ahzab or Khandaq. Now, between that Battle of Ahzab or Khandaq, there are a couple of more important incidences that happen, and then we don't necessarily have time to go into detail with them. One of them is their assassination, or number of assassinations. The Prophet sends at one time 10 Sahaba, and all of them are treacherously killed. Right? Another time, he sends 70 Sahaba to a different tribe to give dawah. They're also treacherously killed. So a lot of now the after Uhud, it kind of emboldens the other tribes that are surrounding Medina to start attacking the Muslims. And then the third thing that happens is there's the second tribe of a Jewish tribe. The name of that tribe is Banu Nadir. They launch an assassination attempt of the Prophet ﷺ, and again, that's foiled as well. And they're also driven out of Medina. So those are the three incidences that happen. Now, as Abu Sufyan is leaving the battlefield, he calls out and he says to the Muslims, he challenges the Muslims, we will meet you again next year in Badr. And that will be our final base-off, you know. So you have 1 point, we have 1 point. Now this is going to be round 3, and we'll see who's going to win in round 3. So this was a challenge that the Meccans gave to the Muslims before they left. So the Prophet ﷺ accepts that challenge, and the next year he comes with 1,500 men to Medina, to Badr again. And the Qurayshi army, they start leaving with 2,000 men, and then they have a change in heart. They say, you know what, we don't want to face them again. So they retreat. So this, in one sense, was a victory for the Muslims, where they accepted the challenge and they went to face that challenge. However, it was a no-show from the side of the Qurayshi army. Now, the Battle of Khandaq was a very, very difficult battle. Now, why was it a difficult battle? It wasn't so much because it was fighting, but it was more of a battle of nerves, that you could say. So what happens for the Battle of Ahzab or Khandaq, you have the entire tribes of Arabia, right? You have the Jewish tribes that were basically kicked out of Medina, right? Then you have the Qurayshi army. Then you have the tribes of Qatfan, and there are many tribes actually, right? Multiple tribes surrounding Makkah and Medina. All of them gathered together. Tribes of Tihana, the tribes of Banu Salim, all of them gathered together. And they have 10,000 men, right? 10,000 men that are gathered. And 10,000 is such a high figure that it is more than the entire population of Medina. The entire population of Medina. And they join together and they come as one force directly to Medina. And this time their goal is, we're going to wipe the Muslims off completely, right? So the Prophet ﷺ gathers with the Sahaba, and then he asks for their advice. What are we going to do right now, right? So the suggestion of Salman al-Farisi is accepted. And he has a beautiful story as well. We, again, don't have time to go through that. But he's a Sahabi from Persia, and he becomes Muslim. He comes in search of the Prophet ﷺ to Medina and becomes Muslim. He says, Ya Rasulullah, in Persia, when we were facing a situation like this, we would dig trenches. We would dig trenches to stop the army. So Prophet ﷺ accepts his suggestion, and then they start digging a trench, right? So the situation over here, you could say, is, Medina is surrounded by big mountains and valleys on the side, and they're lavas, right? So there's essentially, these areas are covered, right? So these are valleys, and these are valleys, and there's Mount Uhud over here. So there's 2 areas that are completely uncovered. And this is where the areas where the Qurayshi army can attack, right? So this is where the Qurayshi army eventually ends up coming. So the Muslims dig a trench over here. So they're covered from the rest of the site. And this is the site where the 3,000 people gather and face off. And the aim is not to allow the 10,000 to cross their trench and attack Medina. That's what their aim is. So the entire army comes and they're shocked. The Meccan army is absolutely shocked to see this like huge trench dug in there. They've never seen anything like that. And now they can't go and attack the city directly, right? And the Muslims are over here protecting it. And during the digging of the trench, amazing incidences happen. You have the incidents where one of the Sahabi, Jabir bin Abdullah, he sees the Prophet being extremely hungry. When he sees stones tied to the stomach of the Prophet, he goes to his wife and says, we have to get food for the Prophet. She says, okay, go call the Prophet and just get 2 or 3 other people with him. The Prophet tells, as soon as he gets the invitation, he says to the entire army, oh, army, people of the Quraysh and Ansar, let's go. Jabir has given us a invitation for food. He runs back to his wife. He's like, okay, the Prophet has now invited the entire army. She says, if the Prophet did it, he'll take care of it. And then the miracle happens where the Prophet takes out the food that is enough for 2 to 3 people and feeds it to the entire army. Another interesting thing is as they're digging the trench, there's a huge rock that's found that nobody can move. And then they call the Prophet. And the Prophet hits the rock, and as he's hitting it, he hits it 3 times, and every time sparks fly off, he sees something in the sparks, and he says, I can see the palaces of Sham, I can see the palaces of Persia, I can see the doors of Yemen. And the hypocrites, they start making fun of the Prophet saying, oh, look at this man, He has 10,000 people that are about to kill him right now, and he's talking about the palaces in Sham and Syria and Sana'a, and of course we know eventually all those places are liberated by the Muslims later on. But anyways, there is no direct fight that goes on in the Battle of Khandaq. There is a group that manages to jump up and come out and cross the other side, right? And amongst that group, there's a very huge fighter of the Makkans. His name is Amr bin Abdul Wad. And he is so strong and so, you can say, talented in fighting. He challenges the Muslims. He challenges the Muslims directly, and nobody faces the challenge. Ali Raziyallahu anhu, he gets up the first time, and then he stopped because they don't want Ali Raziyallahu anhu to get hurt. And finally he says, I'm going to take him down. He goes down. There's amazing, the description of the battle is very, very interesting. The person says, I don't want to fight you. You're a kid. Ali Raziyallahu anhu says, I want to fight you. I'm going to kill you. And eventually they have a face-off. There's a big, almost a little dust storm that ends up. And then Ali Raziyallahu anhu comes back with his sword, killing Amr bin Abdul Wad. So the entire army of the Muslims starts shouting Allahu Akbar. So this is happening, and then it's almost a stalemate, right? The Qurayshi army can't really cross the trench. Then a very, very, you can say, difficult situation arises from the Muslims, right? So there is the last and the final Jewish tribe of Madinah al-Munawwara, and they are behind the Muslims, and they're called Banu Qurayza, right? Banu Qurayza. Now they're in an alliance with the Muslims, and they're not supposed to do anything, right? They're not participating in the battle, but they're also not supposed to attack. However, one of the Jewish tribes that were already from Medina, they managed, his name is I'm blanking on his name, Huway, I believe his name is. Anyways, he comes to Banu Qurayza, and he says, he convinces them to join the Qurayshi army and attack the Muslims from the back, right? And if the Muslims are attacked from the back, now remember, all the Muslim army is at the forefront. And here you have the city of Medina, right? Here you have the city of Medina, and all the women and children and the women folk are all basically undefended. So this guy, he comes up and he convinces Banu Qurayza to attack the Muslim army from the back, and they promise them that once the Muslims are killed, they'll be able to get the whole of the loot and Medina, and they are promised amnesty by the Quraysh. So now the Muslims are like in a very, very dangerous situation because they're pretty much being attacked from both sides. Now initially the Prophet ﷺ, when he finds that out, he has to confirm it because Banu Qurayza guarantees to the Muslims that they're not going to attack. But the news is true. The Prophet ﷺ sends 4 Sahaba over there, and they find out that the news is actually true. They have basically gone back on their word, and they're beginning to prepare to attack the women and the children of Medina. So now, as they send one of the persons over there, Safiya bin Abdul Muttalib, the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ, the sister of Hamza, she sees that there's some movement going on from their tribes. So as there's one man who's about to climb up wherever the women and children are basically protected, she asks another Sahabi who happens to be a weak Sahabi. She says, go kill that man. It looks like he's going to attack us, but he doesn't do it. So she goes, and as the man is about to climb that wall or that elevated place, she hits him and she gives him a fatal blow. Now that was actually a very good thing that happened because the people of Bani Qurayza think that there are actually Muslim men who are there to protect the Muslim women. So and then the children. So they forego the idea of attacking them from the back. But anyways, you can imagine the morale of the army and the morale of the Muslims, where they're feeling, okay, we have 10,000 people in the front, and they have about 3,000 men already and armed about to attack from both sides. So at that time, something, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet is praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and something amazing happens. A man from the tribe of Ghatfan, he comes to the Prophet and he becomes Muslim. And he tells the Prophet that I can do something where this situation can be changed. So he goes to Banu Qurayza and he tells them that do not trust the Quraysh because they will, once after they kill the Muslims, they'll kill you. And then he goes to the Quraysh and he says, do not trust the Banu Qurayza because they're still allied with the Muslims and they're not going to attack the Muslims from the back. So he basically sows a discord between the two armies. And then he tells the Banu Qurayza, for you guys, if you before you attack the Muslims from the back, ask the Quraysh to send their men, some of their men as hostages, so that there's a guarantee that they won't attack you once they kill the Muslims, right? And to the Quraysh, he says, look, don't send your men to Banu Qurayza because they're planning to capture them and kill them and give them to the Muslims. So he basically completely plays this game where none of the Quraysh and the Banu Qurayza don't trust each other. And finally, there are about a couple of, I don't know exactly the number of days or weeks, the Qurayshi army is standing there, and there's absolutely nothing they do. And there's really no war, no battle. About only 10 people are killed throughout the battle. And those are the ones that are just killed by arrows, from arrow shooting from back and forth. So the Qurayshi army eventually retreats. There's a storm that happens. It's really cold. They're getting hungry. They don't have any food or reinforcements left. So they retreat, right? And then now the Muslims are, alhamdulillah, safe in Medina. The Qurayshi army is retreated, but now they have to deal with the other traitors, right? The traitors that almost cost them, Medina almost cost them the lives of their women and children and themselves, right? And who's that? That's Banu Qurayza. Now the Muslim army, the Prophet ﷺ, even before he goes out and he takes his armor off, Jibreel alayhi salam comes to him and says, we have to go deal with Banu Qurayza. So now the Muslim army goes to Banu Qurayza. And now these people are scared, right? These people are absolutely scared because they know that they've done something terribly wrong, right? They were ready to slaughter the Muslims. The only reason why they didn't do it is because of the last moment ploy that the man who converted from Qatfan was able to play. And now Banu Qurayza they basically have barricaded themselves, and they are essentially worried, and they don't know what's going to happen to them. They say, send us a man called Abu Lubaba radiyallahu anhu. He's the Sahabi and he used to be their friend. He said, we'll negotiate with him. So Abu Lubaba comes to him, and then they send their women and their children. They're all crying, saying, oh, Abu Lubaba, have mercy on us and intercede on our behalf. But Abu Lubaba is silent. He's not saying anything. And then one of the leaders of the Jewish tribe, he asks them, what is going to happen to us? Abu Lubaba, he doesn't want to tell them, but he basically, because he's their friend, he kind of signals them, like, with the ishara, with the signal saying that, you're going to be killed. But then he feels so bad for divulging the secret of Prophet ﷺ. He goes to Masjid al-Nabawi and he ties himself to a pillar. That's called, it's even marked right now if you go to Medina Munawwara, inshallah, when it opens up and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a chance to go there, we can see that. It's called Ustuwan al-Tawbah, right? He ties himself over there and he says, I'm not going to untie myself until Allah forgives me. The Prophet, when he finds out, he says, why did he make that condition? If he would have just came and asked me, I would have made dua for him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have forgiven him. Eventually, however, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to Prophet that he's forgiven, and Prophet himself unties him from that pillar. But anyways, Banu Qurayza holds off the Muslim army for quite some time. This is the famous incident when the Prophet says, go to Banu Qurayza and don't pray Asr until you reach Banu Qurayza. So, but the Asr time comes in the middle. So a part of the army takes the ruling as the Prophet meant, hurry up and go there, but he didn't necessarily mean don't pray. But the other army says, no, his direction was explicit. He said, don't pray Asr until you reach Banu Qurayza. So part of the army prays Asr the Salah, the other part of the army doesn't. And the Prophet does not tell either one of them they're wrong. And that's an amazing incident that which is a lesson for us Muslims, that there can be a difference of opinion to interpret a certain ruling. And it doesn't necessarily mean that one of them is right and the other one is wrong. So eventually, Banu Qurayza gives up. And Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, who was injured by an arrow during this battle, the Prophet ﷺ gives him the final decision to make what is to be done with the people of Banu Qurayza. And Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, he decides that their menfolk have to be killed. They have done the most treacherous deed, which is really, had they not been killed, or had they been given the chance, they would have annihilated the entire Muslim army. So the decision is made is to kill their soldiers, and then to capture the rest of the family and their booty, the war booty, as they say. And then Sa'd radiyallahu anhu actually is injured during this battle from an arrow, and he makes a dua, "Oh Allah, if you have given the Prophet ﷺ the decisive victory, then let me be shaheed, let me die from this wound." And that is eventually what happens. And the Prophet ﷺ makes a lot of dua for Sa'd, and he says the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shaken with the death of the Prophet of Sa'd. So this was the final battle between the Muslims and the Quraysh. And it was a very, very difficult battle in the sense that you can imagine, for the days, Muslims being surrounded by 10,000 people on one side, 3,000 people on the other side, and just complete reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as to how to get out of the situation. Now, after this battle, the reputation of the Muslims amongst the tribe just goes, skyrockets. They're saying these are a group of people that nobody can defeat. You had the entire tribes of Arabia descend upon them, and they have not been able to even touch them. They have not even, they could not even scratch their surface. This is how well defended the Muslims were. And not only did they do that, they basically took care of the internal enemy as well. So now the Muslims, alhamdulillah, are at a different position. So inshallah, tomorrow we will continue with the series, and we'll talk about the next amazing incident and chapter in the life of the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, which would be the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us again the tawfiq to understand the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, to have the love of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba in our heart, and to act upon the teachings and the lessons that we gain from the Seerah. وآخر الدعوة الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير.